Hey friends, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel Football Therapy with me, your host, Jan. I hope you're doing well, mate. I really do hope that, though you might be struggling, if you're a Chelsea fan, due to these turbulent times in our world of football. Of course, Chelsea, 3 losses out of 4 games. Yes, context required. Congestion, new manager, injuries, major injuries. But there's still frustration in trying to perhaps shift our philosophy, a rebuild from the ground up. Of course, we had a more positive performance in our 2-0 loss away at the Etihad against the champions in the League Cup yesterday. Positive performances from Lewis Hall, the youngster. And yes, Chelsea had a higher XG than Manchester City away in their stadium, which of course many of you will understandably laugh at, but it is testament to an improved performance with their goalkeeper Ortega winning man of the match in the Etihad. So it was improved. No one really expected Chelsea to beat them. Of course, it also helps Chelsea fans that both Arsenal and Tottenham were also eliminated from the competition from against lesser opposition. So there's that. But ultimately, I might lose focus a little bit here because there's no green screen behind me, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. But yeah, ultimately we want wins. And I want to talk about Graham Potter. And of course, with these difficult results at the moment, people are talking about Thomas Tuchel, and Thomas Tuchel has actually spoken and guested on his first ever podcast, which I want to cite. It was actually he's done like a health retreat in, I think it's in India, and he is basically doing he's quite spiritual, Thomas Tuchel. He's into meditation and stuff, and for this like erratic sort of charismatic guy, he believes in like a lot of keeping himself healthy, body and mind, which is great, inspirational. Made me think I got to get back into meditation. But he spoke about trusting the process, and I'm going to cite an article from I'm going to say sorry before I talk about the publication, the MailOnline. But it is interesting. The title is Thomas Tuchel fires word of warning to successor Graham Potter after back-to-back defeats for Chelsea as the German insists, quote, nobody will trust the process if poor form continues. With the axed German, God, that's such like tabloid headlines, the axed German adamant the club is about results. Certainly it has been historically under Roman Abramovich. We're going to get into it today, so thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you for dropping a like on the content. It's just 1 milliclick, and it's really helpful for us content creators, so thank you for doing that. And you're welcome to subscribe, and should you choose to subscribe to this channel, I suggest you hit that sweet, sweet bell, baby. Nice little hook for you there. Alright, let's get into it. I'm going to stop along the way and talk about the situation properly. But yes, Graham Potter has been warned that nobody at Chelsea will trust the process if he cannot arrest a dip in form following back-to-back defeats. That word of warning comes from Thomas Tuchel, his predecessor in the dugout at Stamford Bridge. The German knows better than most how ruthless it is managing in West London. Of course, Tuchel's first interview with Chelsea was like, well, look, I don't care, it's a short contract, because if I don't do well, they'll sack me anyway. So, yeah, Potter has come in for increasing scrutiny and criticism already just months into the job, with a defeat to Arsenal in the league, followed by a Carabao Cup exit at the hands of Man City. Of course, the Arsenal loss was a lot more damning, because Chelsea just looked absolutely pathetic. But of course, we looked although the loss margin was greater, we looked a lot better against Man City. Well, the ex-Brighton boss post-match comments in which he conceded Arsenal were better, which was absolutely true, and said Chelsea showed courage against a top team like Man City have caused a stir. For Tuchel, angst at Chelsea cannot extend beyond a short period, or Potter will find little to no buy-in into his methods. Look, Man City are a top team. Chelsea are, of course, a top team as well, but I think people need to understand Graham Potter's comments of, and maybe, the best team in England that's 7 years into the project. Before I get into Thomas Tuchel's comments here, which he speaks about, and I'll talk about his quotes, it is important to note that Chelsea is a holistic project. Now, people don't want to hear that, but it is. The new ownership aren't looking at Chelsea to win the season and do a Roman Abramovich and get into £2 billion debt like Roman did. They're like, right, how do we consistently win like our other sports franchises in America? Well, we've got to build from the ground up, and we've got to look at what works in European football, and we've got to start again, essentially. And that's ultimately what they're doing. But I've said it in a previous video, and I'll reiterate it today. The new ownership's model of success has to include winning trophies, winning championships, being the best team. That's certainly what they've done in their other teams, and that's what they've said they've done before they've even bought Chelsea. Todd Boehly says, look, success has to be winning. He said that when being interviewed a couple of years ago with the Dodgers or whatever, and he said it again with Chelsea. You know, they are fully invested. They're not the Glazers just taking out dividends out of Manchester United. They're at every single game. You know, Bedad Iqbali, the head of like Clear Lake, or the representative, he's a massive football fan. He's at every single game with Todd Boehly. Again, they were pictured in the stand. Yes, they went out to Manchester in November. Who does that? They're watching Chelsea. They watch every game. They want Chelsea to be good. People need to seek comfort in the knowledge that a football fan's the biggest anguish is their owners. Yes, they might be pissed off with their managers, and if there is evidence like over a long period of time that their manager can't do it, fine. But this always goes back to the owners, whether it's the Newcastle, whether it's, you know, Liverpool fans upset with FSG, who are seemingly selling the club at the moment, whether it's Man United with the Glazers, whether it's Arsenal with the Kroenkes, of course, until they've recently trusted their process, and you've stopped seeing the Arsenal fans, you know, protest against the Kroenkes because they're top of the league and they're having a lovely time, you know. So it's important to put that in. I'm not saying necessarily that Graham Potter is 100% going to be the man that has a legacy at Chelsea, but, you know, he's been seen at the moment as the appropriate candidate. What I am saying is that regardless who is at the helm, a process will have to be trusted. But on that, Thomas Tuchel fires said warning. So he went on the Ayurvedic Healing and Beyond podcast, and Tuchel said this: my experience in Chelsea, Paris, Dortmund, and Mainz is about results. You can overcome one loss, a short period, but it cannot be too long, otherwise nobody trusts the process anymore. So the German, who currently is out of work after being sacked earlier this season by new co-owner Todd Boehly, spoke openly about his approach to managing the egos in the Chelsea's dressing room and the need to set the standard each day. He says, quote, to worship the process on a daily basis, this is the most important. I tried to be really strict and disciplined with the players, be on time, be friendly, really, really strict, be friendly with each other, be respectful, be ready to give your best. Chelsea have now lost 3 of their last 4 matches, successive league defeats by Brighton and Arsenal before losing the cup clash at the Etihad. And the alarm bells are ringing, certainly for some, and understandably. The honeymoon period appears to be well and truly over, but Potter is embracing the challenge rather than shirking it. Speaking earlier in the week, he said, look, if I wanted a nice, easy life, I could have quite easily stayed at Brighton, in the Premier League, signed a new contract, and been absolutely okay. 4th place, by the way, he left Brighton, which was much higher, or they were looking a lot better than Thomas Tuchel's Chelsea at the time. Remember Leeds, remember Southampton, you know, we were not playing well at all. So that revisionism that's rife all over the Chelsea fan base at the moment needs to be addressed. Things were bad under Thomas Tuchel. He stopped talking to some players. He stopped talking to the management. I love Thomas Tuchel. I was just saying at the top of this video, I listened to this podcast, you know, amazing, inspirational guy. Many of you will love Thomas Tuchel. But it had turned sour. He will reflect how things turned bad. He wanted to stay at Chelsea, but I'm sure if you gave Tuchel the chance to do it again, he would have done it differently. And I'm not just talking about results on the pitch. I'm talking about not, you know, keep making players feel isolated, etc., etc., like Lampard ultimately did. You know, you're looking at a guy, Graham Potter, who won't do that. And I wouldn't have too many questions about myself, pressure, sackings, or anything like that. You have to go through disappointment. There is a discomfort and pain along the way. There you go. We're in it now, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to do something new, in my mind, you have to fail. It'd be wrong for me to say anything else. There's no shortcut in my experience. One of the reasons to come to Chelsea, and there were many, it's a fantastic football club, potentially one of the best in the world that can compete for any major trophy. Darn straight, and you can understand why Potter would want to come here. Tuchel guided Chelsea to the Champions League glory. And of course, he was ruthlessly axed in September. And then to serve the warning, Potter, that disappointment never... Okay, look, Tuchel was sacked, Potter came in. Look, mate, he's right. It is about trusting and worshipping a process. Now, it's not up to the fans to do that, by the way. Because if it was... Like I said before, Arteta would have been sacked 3 times over at Chelsea from our ownership. Certainly Roman Abramovich would have sacked it. Over his 150 games he's had for Arsenal, Abramovich would have sacked Arteta. This is not an exaggeration, 3 times. All the fans wanted Arteta out. There was banners, there was T-shirts, and I kind of get it. I was like, how is this guy still in a job, Mikel Arteta? You think it's bad with Chelsea at the moment? We had a relatively cohesive performance yesterday. It was astronomically worse for Arsenal. They were in the trenches, mate. It was all going wrong, you know, and Mikel Arteta was making big, sort of sensational calls as well. The fans didn't trust the process. The ownership trust the process, and it's paying dividends. Now, the Chelsea fans don't have to trust the process with Potter. I hope some do, if he is to stay, because then it will prevent a toxic atmosphere from manifesting and being cultivated. But the owners have to. Now, it is important, like I said, people understandably are emotional, and I get it, I was too. But, well, I was a little bit more apathetic yesterday, but emotional generally with the poor results. Certainly Arsenal was just dismal. But, like I said, every single game, these guys that are from America, that run franchises and businesses in America and could be very, very busy elsewhere, are at Chelsea games, home and away. There's intentions to make big transfers in January. They want to make it work. They can see that there is dysfunction in it. Look at that Man City squad, man. Julian Alvarez, that kid, who was like, I can't remember if it was Liam Twomey or Nazar Kinsella, one of the two, tweeted out how he would be Chelsea's main striker that we build around. And for Man City, he's like playing like a Solskjaer. His goal record is insane already, but because there's this, you know, massive robot up front in Erling Haaland, he's not being talked about. But he's been excellent all over the pitch. They have you know, wonderful depth. They've all been trained for years and years in the Guardiola way. They've long established their setup, you know, staff and roles around Guardiola. That, by the way, was hired before his arrival at 2016, and obviously they've been there for years. It's, you know, formulaic, it's just done robotically, and it's a winning formula. Chelsea will look to emulate that. We've already started hiring people, but right now, it's going to suck. Yes, people are emotional and upset. I get it. Tuchel was such a loved character, and you can see why. He's a good guy, he's charismatic, he's a world-class manager, but it was crap towards the end. And it was crap towards the end for us fans, but it was crap towards the end behind the scenes that we didn't know about, that we actually found about afterwards from inside reporting, from reputable journalists and reporters that, yeah, stuff had got screwed up towards the end. It was untenable, which is a shame, but that's the way it was. So you can't go back to Tuchel, and it wasn't going to work with Tuchel. What are your options then? Well, your options are this guy that the new ownership have looked at for a while and think, yeah, we would like him to work. You know, he's done an excellent job at Brighton. He plays attractive football. He's beating big teams, and with his resources, he's doing really, really well. And he's not going to upset players. There's that guy, or what? Another ego-based, driven manager from Europe. I don't even know who you go for. Like, you know, who? Do you know what I mean? And that guy, how do you know that guy is going to be compatible with the ownership model to work? You don't know that, man. It's tricky. Look, but not Potter. He's not saying all the right things. He's acting a bit sort of humble and respectful. And Chelsea fans, they want raw passion, and you know, we want your Mourinho's, your Conte's, your Tuchel's, because it's theatrical and it's warlike. But you're not going to get that. You're going to get a guy that's going to be respectful and methodical about things and quite pensive. And hopefully that pays dividends in the long run. The point is, he's here now, and he needs essentially backing from the players. He doesn't need backing from the players. I'm sure he's not on Twitter. I mean, fans, excuse me. I'm sure he's not on Twitter looking at. He's probably far too sensible for that. But there needs to be a holistic view on what's happening and a little bit of a deep breath collectively. Tuchel is gone, all right? It wasn't working, and he's gone. There's nothing else out there that would be appropriate right now. The problem at Chelsea is building a structure, is having joined up thinking, is re-recruiting decent, appropriate players. That's the issue at Chelsea. And that's what needs to be addressed. And as Thomas Tuchel said, it's about trusting the process. But is Chelsea going to trust the process, or are they going to panic and spiral? We'll have to see. Let me know what you think, though. Comment down below. Thank you for supporting the content, as usual. I really do appreciate it by dropping a like, subscribing, etc., etc. Keep it locked, friends. I look forward to seeing you very soon on the next one here on Football Therapy. Peace.